Hey everybody, it's your friend Jenna from Uncomplicated Kitchen, and today we're not gonna cook. We're actually gonna talk about swapping greens. So let's say that you're a person who does not love arugula. It happens. What if you're making a recipe and it's like 1 cup of arugula? Do you give up? Do you run to the store to get arugula? Do you end up not liking your food because you still used arugula? You do not have to do that. Cooking is all about knowing how to make substitutions that work for you. And not just cooking confidently. And so today I want to talk just a little bit about greens and how we can swap them in and out. One of the basic rules of thumb that I like to follow when I'm looking at something that I want to make and saying, you know what, I've only got spinach, but I don't have kale, or this thing calls for bok choy and I've only got cabbage. What do I do? How do I know what's gonna work and what's not? Well, one thing is you've got to think about the flavor. Is your greens supposed to take a prominent role? Like mustard greens are really, really spicy. Collard greens have a deep, deep green flavor. That's the best way I can explain it. And a lot of lettuces and spinach are pretty mild. So what I like to think about is, what is it supposed to taste like? Then, and I think even more important, is what is the texture of that and what kind of cooking or not cooking does it need? So in front of me right here, I've got several types of greens. I've got really crunchy romaine lettuce. I've got very soft buttery Bibb lettuce. I've got some Napa cabbage, which has a lot of fun textured. I think it's called savoid actually, when the leaves are kind of crinkled like that. Then I've got a couple kinds of kale that I just picked out of my garden. I got white Russian, red Russian, and I've got a dino kale. I've also got a baby America spinach that I pulled out of the garden. And then just to show you that spinach is kind of everywhere, I also got some lovely baby spinach from the grocery store. Now today, I'm gonna be making a Mediterranean grain bowl, and I think a grain bowl always needs some kind of greens. Well, which kind am I gonna choose? Well, I want something that's going to be able to chop up nicely and melt in with the rest of what I'm making. So romaine, too crunchy, I'm not gonna go with that one. It's got way too much texture. Remember, I want it to melt in. Bibb lettuce is really, really good. Ideal for lettuce wraps and for things that you're kind of putting in like this little lettuce cup, but it's too soft. This kind of lettuce I think will melt in and get really mushy pretty quickly. Then I've got this cabbage. Cabbage is awesome, and I think cabbage could work, but it might be a little crunchier than what I'm looking for. Remember, I want the greens in there for health reasons, but I don't want it to take a front seat when it comes to flavor and texture. Then I've got this kale right here. This kale could work, especially because this is baby kale. It is soft leaves. The stems are not woody. They're very nice and soft and pliable because they're so young right now. And doesn't really taste like much, especially when it's baby kale. It's really mild. And then we've got some spinach, both the spinach that I grew and the spinach that I bought at the store. Either of those could work too. They are soft, but they still maintain their structure. They taste green, but not too green, and I think they'll blend perfectly with my dish. So once again, think about the flavor of what you want. Do you want something that's really, really kind of in front, like arugula, like mustard greens, like something called mizuna that is really fun and peppery? You could even use radish tops if you want something like that. Or do you want something that's gonna kind of take a back seat, still be there, give you lots of nutrition because it's a good hearty green veggie, but then blend in seamlessly to what you're eating? Today, for my Mediterranean grain bowl, and hopefully you'll watch that video after, but I've decided that I think I'm gonna use some kale and spinach today because they're gonna work perfectly with what I'm making. All right, so today we're making that Mediterranean grain bowl. So I've already said that kale and spinach would be my personal preferences. You could honestly use whatever you want, but I just wanna talk to you about the why behind why I make my choices. All right, so let's say you're making, I don't know, a white bean and kale soup, but you don't have kale. But you might have something like collards, you might have spinach, you could have some beet tops. All of those would work perfectly in this. The one that I would not choose because it would turn really mushy is your lettuces. Lettuces are so soft, they don't have much of, a hearty spine. And romaine, even though the spine of the lettuce, right, that rib that goes down the middle is very firm, I think it would just end up being really, really watery in your dish. So swap out the hearty greens. The heartier greens are the ones great for cooking, in my opinion. Lots of cabbages, mustard greens, collard greens, the big pieces of kale, those are all ideal for that purpose. But I'd avoid something super soft like lettuce just because of the texture. So ultimately, this is completely up to you. You eat what you like, but some people ask, how do I know which ones to swap in and out? Well, that's how I make my choices. I hope you learned something today. Bye.